Welcome to the big leagues.
You got a thumbs up from Raquel.
I did. Good. All right.
That you can be heard? Are you ready?
Good evening, and welcome to the January 5th, 2026 meeting of the Select Board. My name is Ron Schneider, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. I would ask at this point, everybody who's able to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the following meeting is being recorded and broadcast by Tyngsborough Media. The meeting is available through our local cable access channels on Comcast and Verizon Fios, and is a live stream on our website, www.tyngsboroughma.gov. Recording of this meeting will be available through the video on demand portion of our website. Open meeting laws require that any member of the audience who intends on recording either video or audio so declare that now. Thank you. After instruction from the State Fire Marshal and the Tyngsborough Fire Chief, in the event of an emergency, there's an exit directly across from me and at the rear of the room and one to my left. Okay, at this point, let's go through introductions. How don't we start from my right today?
Sean Walsh, Assistant Town Manager.
Good evening, Colin Loisel, Town Manager.
Good evening, Eric Eldridge.
Hello, Jackie Gilfus.
Good evening, it's Al Coughlin.
David Andrews, Finance
Good.
Michael Page, Planning Board.
Dave Robson, Planning Board.
Jeremy Baldwin, Planning Board.
Kimberly O'Brien, Planning Board.
Steve O'Neill, Planning Board.
Thank you. All right, meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes for December 15th, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? It carries 4-0-0.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve but not release the executive session meeting minutes for December 15th, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That carries 4-0-0. Thank you. Citizen and business time. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board on matters of interest? If so, please come up to the mic, introduce yourself, give us your name and address, please.
Thank you. My name is Rodney Elliott. My address is 15 Cresta Drive, Lowell, Massachusetts. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to have a few moments of time to introduce myself. I know you have a very busy agenda, so I will be brief, but I come before you as a candidate running for the state Senate seat, the special election that's coming up for the open seat vacated by the late passing of Ed Kennedy, who I served with on the Lowell City Council. I'm running as an individual with 42 years of experience, professional experience, working in local, state, and the federal government, as well as serving for 24 years on the Lowell City Council and a term as mayor. So I would welcome an opportunity to meet and speak with any residents throughout the district. But I feel I am the most qualified candidate running with my experience. I also worked in local government, so I understand many of the issues that I heard two weeks ago that I've heard in other towns and the city as well. My priorities are, healthcare cost, Chapter 90 money for streets and sidewalks, as well as town insurance. I heard last week there are costs that are difficult to absorb by all communities across the Commonwealth. Chapter 70, I'm a member of the Ways and Means Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, and we are working on the Chapter 70. We heard loud and clear, communities cannot afford it, where we see layoffs happening across the community. So, affordability is the issue that I'm running on. Clearly, my experience and time on the Lowell City Council, and even working in the town of Groton, I understand the complexities. I understand the issues, and I can tell you the towns will be well represented if I am elected, because I'm a municipal person at heart. and, that's where the services are provided. I realize that, having spent so much time on the local level. So you'll have an advocate in the state senate for, funding issues and the issues that, you deal with every single day that are important. And funding is one of those major issues. I'm going to fight for the towns, and I'm going to deliver for all the towns in the community of the First District. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Otherwise, we'll move on our agenda. Okay. Next item is a joint meeting with the planning board. Good.
Sure. As this board was made aware at its last meeting, longtime planning board member Chaz Dowdy resigned from the planning board after many years of service. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, the vacancy is to be filled by a joint vote of the Select Board and the remaining members of the planning board who are here this evening. Any individual appointed to fill the vacancy is entitled to a term that expires at the conclusion of the next annual town election. If the appointed individual wishes to continue beyond that limited term, they must pull and return nomination papers and appear on the ballot in May. At the conclusion of that election, the victorious candidate would be entitled to serve a new 5-year term. It just so happens that Mr. Dowdy's term was expiring in May anyway, so he would get a full 5-year term. In total, the town received 4 letters of interest from the following residents. This is just in order of the receipt of the letters of interest: Frank Petzold, John Murphy, Albert Silva, and Bridget Splain. Tonight, the 2 boards may deliberate, and if they feel so inclined, determine which of the 4 candidates they believe is best suited to serve on the planning board. Procedurally, we invited the applicants to appear before the boards this evening, even though we did not require it. It would be up to both boards to decide if you wanted to hear from those that are here this evening. Finally, just as a practical matter, to make the appointment, it would be a single motion and a single second, followed by a vote of everybody combined. So I don't need 2 separate votes from the different boards. You'd be voting as one joint collective. And I included in the packet and shared with the planning board last week the letters of interest from those that, and I think we have at least 2 here, 2 residents here if the boards were interested.
Okay. Does the planning board need to open a meeting?
You don't necessarily need to open it, but they can certainly declare that they've identified themselves.
Okay.
Them being here constitutes an open meeting already, so.
Perfect.
Frank Petzold.
Want to come up to the mic, Frank?
Hello, everyone. It's the first time, actually, that I'm actively involved. I'm trying to be involved here as part of our town. I've been living here for almost 30 years. Immigrated from Germany approximately 32 years ago and moved quickly to Tyngsborough. I have seen a lot of changes in Tyngsborough and want to, I've addressed in my letter a little bit of a concern of affordability in a sense of where I believe we were and we're heading, in my opinion, and I want to be part of the decision-making process and ensuring that we as a town keep the charm as we had it a while ago, but still being commercially open to other businesses, and hope that my letter and me being here convinces you that I can fill the void, and then we'll take it from there. Thanks.
Thank you.
And then John Murphy is
Yep,
the second of the resident here.
Hey, everybody, I'm John Murphy, Ting Road. I'm just used to saying that, sorry. I've been a resident of Tyngsborough now for 11 years. I've lived in the community for much longer than that. I moved to North Chelmsford, which is essentially Tyngsborough from where I was, in 2007. So I've been in the area, and I went to school at ULowell, so I'm very familiar with the area in general. I've been an IT executive for the past 25 years. I just retired officially this past summer. But in that role, I've also been responsible for all new buildings. I've been responsible for building out from scratch, building out renovations, planning, going through site maps, all that stuff for the longest time. I am currently the chair of the Tyngsborough Republican Town Committee. Established that back in 2020. So I'm very invested in the town itself. I was part of the 250 Middlesex community. Vision Committee. Again, I've been as involved as possible over the past few years. I want to give back as much as I can now that I'm officially retired and do more for the town. I think the planning is one of the things I do best. Part of my role as a CIO was planning for the future, and I would bring that skill to the planning board as well. So I'm open to any questions if anybody has any, but I wanted to come here, show my commitment, and make myself available to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other people here? All right, so just the two of them, all right? I will open it up to both boards, and why don't we start with, I'll start with Adele. Are there particular questions you have for either of the two candidates?
No, none at this time. I think they will both be viable candidates
All
from
right.
what I have seen in their letters of intent and their presence here tonight.
All right, Select Person Gilfus.
Yeah, just, I think more a reminder for us and the planning board that we are looking to deliberate on the 4 candidates, not just the 2 that are here. That wasn't a requirement. So I don't want the other 2 candidates to be ruled out just because they're not here. So I don't know if it's worth, maybe Colin, if you could not speak on behalf of the other 2, but maybe just like at a high level, remind everyone of their qualifications from their letters. Would that be okay?
Sure. One of the letters is from a Tyngsborough resident, Albert Silva, who is also a real estate agent, and his letter talks about 20 years of experience as a real estate broker. Again, this packet's available online so people can see I'm not making anything up here. I'm reading directly from it. Cites an understanding of community growth, land use, and the intricacies of development proposals. And the other one is from Bridget Splain, who is an attorney, an associate attorney at Perkins and Ansell in Westford, where her practice centers around real estate conveyance issues. And in that letter, talks about working with a number of developers, towns, cities, and planning boards to help address any outstanding issues prior to the sale of properties. And then goes on to talk about some of her more legal specific experience.
Thank you, Colin. So my question is actually more for the planning board. With the hole that's going to be open from Chaz leaving, is there a certain perspective that you all are hoping to fill or like seeking of the open role?
What degree, like specific wise? I mean,
What?
Chaz basically is irreplaceable. He's been on multiple, right? I mean,
Fair,
everybody knows
yeah.
him. He's been on multiple boards. So we're basically starting from scratch. And once again, like Colin has says, they got until May.
Yep.
So it's really not a long term. It's just to make sure that we have a complete board moving forward from this point, so.
Kim?
When I think about replacing somebody on the planning board, I often think about what might be the skills gaps that we have on the board.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, we don't have an attorney. We don't have anyone with a legal background. We have people who understand construction, and Jeremy, you're an architect. I've done real estate development. So I think an attorney would be a good thing for us to have on the board. And I think somebody who really understands zoning and its role, because I think it's really coming to the forefront as different states move into influencing zoning within municipalities, that we understand the planning board's role, the parameters that we work within, and the role that we play here in town. So I sort of, when I looked at these, I was thinking about the skills that each one of us bring to the board and what we might need.
Thanks, Kim. That's really what I was
exactly,
seeking for information. Okay, that's it for right now, Mr. Chair.
Could I just add a little bit to that?
Sure, absolutely.
I looked at it kind of on the opposite side. The town already pays and retains an attorney. I really would want to shy away from anybody giving us any type of legal advice while we're sitting in front of an applicant. So that was one of, and not to saying that they're going to, I'm just bringing up a reference of Kim.
Yeah.
Just saying that I would definitely advise them against that because we hold our own counsel.
That's a
And I
good
wouldn't
point.
want to see the town get jammed up from something that he or she may have said. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Eldridge?
I guess I have a question for each of the candidates, and they have the advantage of being here. So some of it half of it is showing up, right? So I guess we'll start with Mr. Murphy, but I'll ask the same question to both of you. But what do you think is the most important thing that the planning board should be focusing in on? And how would you like to see them accomplish that? Yes, take your time.
As far as the planning board, I think more in terms of the town itself, I think we need to focus on keeping the character of the town irrespective of what we do from a planning perspective. So that's first and foremost my value. We need growth and we need money in the town. So I think we do need some more business development in the town, but we have to be careful about how we implement that. So that's part of what I think the planning board is supposed to be doing, and implementing the 5-year plan and staying according to that. So that's in a nutshell. And I want to clarify one other piece. I forgot to mention earlier that I am a licensed attorney. I've just been working in IT my entire career.
Thank you.
I believe I mentioned it in the quick intro that I want to keep the charm of our community, Tyngsborough, as it stands, or as it was, and as it hopefully will be. As a long-term resident, I have the benefits living on this side of the community with a lot of acreage as the property. I enjoy the nature as it is, right? Where I grew up in a large city in Germany, if you had seen a mouse, that is considered to be wildlife. Here, I just enjoy it and things. What I look at it is we need to balance nature with what we talked about, be commercially viable. What I forgot to mention, and I put it in there, I've spent my lifetime in IT as well. And project planning, looking at 2-3 years plans, rolling them out. But what I was hoping to achieve is actually, we changed a lot on the other side of the road over there. And my concern is, for instance, that we focus so much on the commercial aspects of our community that I want to make sure that we have a fine balance, that we also have a community which continues to be affordable for actually regular families or elderlies. I wouldn't call myself elderlies, but elder, but I'm getting to that stage where affordability living in this town is also important. So how do we achieve that? Do we bring in more business? Do we generate more tax revenue, in a sense? But keeping actually the charm of Tyngsborough as I have seen it for 30 years. That is how I would look at things. That would be my decision matrix, going in there, having a checklist, looking at it. Does it help the community? Does it help being affordable? Do we also consider nature, in a sense, the charm? And I have my internal checklist, which is important to me and I hope for other citizens or townies, which we call them here as well. And that's basically how I would answer that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, the only other thing I would say is it's a relatively short-term fill of the position, and I am extremely thankful for the 4 qualified candidates for stepping up and volunteering. I was very pleased to see that there were 4 qualified candidates. So I think that's great. I'll defer to the next group.
Thank you. So as Colin had mentioned at the outset, we're going to do a single vote for a single person, right?
If the boards collectively feel like they have enough
that's-
information to make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I'll ask the planning board, collectively, do you feel you have enough information to make a decision tonight?
I read all their letters of interest, as everybody else did here. I guess we're
Exactly.
all on the same page with what information we got, so, and from what I've been told, we we need to get a member on here, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that waiting will benefit us at all, right?
Correct.
So,
Yep, and once again, like everybody has said, come May, it's a new person, or potentially this person that stepped up and
Yep.
filled the role for us now, so.
all right.
Does the planning board have any questions that they wanted to ask the candidates?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even think of that. Do any of the members of the planning board have any particular questions for the candidates?
No, I'd just like to remind, I guess, the people that applied, we have rules and regulations. Sometimes we know what your personal goals may be, but you also have to live within the rules and regulations of the planning board and what has to, be approved or what discretion you have. So it's a lot more than just a personal feeling and keep the character, which we always want. But you have to have a pretty open mind and just be cognizant of what's allowed and what isn't for the growth of the town.
Mhm. That's good, good point, thank you.
Well said.
Yep. Other comments? Okay, how do we do this?
Well,
Here's the uncomfortable part.
you could do it, there's a lot of you, so somebody could make a suggestion. If there's support, there could be a motion that way. You could do it by going through all four and saying, and basically taking a straw poll. Somebody can take the charge and say they feel strongly about one person, and then we can see if the rest of the group feels the same way.
You looking at me?
Look
I'm
at
ready to
somebody,
go.
get me out of the hot
I'll
spot.
get you out of the hot spot. I did have the privilege, along with another board member, to sit with John Murphy on the Winslow School 250 Middlesex Road. Although we did not agree with him every single bit of the way, we were able to work through our differences, and I thought he was real professional about it. So having worked with that one person, I do have a little bit of communication with him. Jackie, you were on there also.
Yeah, that's the only
There were
bias
12
I
of
have.
us, and so
Exactly.
we had a pretty good run. So that would be my input for this
Okay.
short little term that's going down here.
I'll second it, if that's a name for a vote. Second.
That's fine. Yeah, unless, does anyone else have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to put forth Bridget Splain. I really feel like, although I don't expect the person to act as an attorney for the board, I do feel like that they'd be bringing a perspective that would really help us as we're drafting decisions.
We can only take one motion on the floor.
Well, I don't think Mr. Robson made a formal motion, but I guess in this case, you would want to do, if those are the only names up,
Yep.
somebody should make a motion for one, second for that, then there would be a vote. If that doesn't pass, we go to another motion. I'm not gonna, you guys can fight over who gets to make the motion first.
I'll make a motion for John Murphy to be the
To fill a
fill the
vacancy.
vacancy on, for the planning board.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on John Murphy? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay,
Abstained?
no,
Okay.
against, I guess.
Okay, yeah, so that's one opposed, no abstentions. That carries. So congratulations, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you.
So procedurally, John, we'll reach out, but you'll just have to get sworn in the town clerk's office, and then Ben and Pam from the planning office will send you all the materials and get you up to date on the meeting schedule.
John, that was 8-1.
8-1,
Yeah.
I have. Thanks.
Thank you both. Really appreciate your time.
The one thing you will want before you move to another item is an adjournment from the planning board.
Motion to adjourn. Planning board.
Second.
You're done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Frank, thank you.
Thank you.
That's why I don't wear coats. That's why I don't wear coats.
All right, we will move on to item number 5, which is the public hearing for TCI LHE LLC, 440 Middlesex Road, units D13, E23, F1, and F11, on-premises alcohol and common vittler licenses application.
Yes, because I'll tell you.
Mr. Chair, before the board tonight are 4 separate applications from TCI LHE LLC located at 440 Middlesex Road in units E23, F11, F1, and D13 respectively. All 4 applications before you are for a common victualler and on-premise all alcohol license. All applications are complete and the appropriate fees have been paid. The hearing was advertised in the Lowell Sun on December 15th and 22nd, 2025. The applicant mailed the butters notifications by certified mail on December 22nd. We requested feedback from any department having jurisdiction over this type of request, and none had any adverse comments. And as you see, the attorney for the applicants are here this evening.
Albert, do we need to open a public meeting?
We do. I don't know if the council wants to introduce himself, because he looks very unfamiliar.
For the record, Attorney Peter Nicosia on behalf of the applicant, TCI LHE LLC.
Thank you. Welcome, Peter.
So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board open the public hearing and waive the reading of the hearing notice and the legal ad.
Second?
All those in favor of opening the public meeting, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstained? That carries 4-0-0. Going too fast.
We are opening the meeting.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you all had good holidays, and
Yes.
unfortunately, we're all back to the grind again. So I represent TCI LHE LLC, which is more familiar to you guys as Sam Park and Company. Sam is the principal behind this operation for the ongoing renovation of the TJ Maxx Plaza. So as you can see, you know, the renovations are happening fast and furious now. The buildings are all starting to come together. We have zeroed in on several restaurant tenants, varying in the type of cuisine that they're going to offer, all great cuisines, because I'm peer reviewing these culinary selections personally, because I'm probably going to be one of their biggest patrons. But what we're finding is, to be able to finalize the leases with them, we need to obtain control of the liquor licenses for that purpose. So there were 3 liquor licenses which were enacted pursuant to special legislation specific to this plaza, and then there was another one which was a special legislation intended to spur on further economic growth up on the upper end of Middlesex Road, so that's why we're pursuing that as well. So we've identified the specific units which we're going to fit up for the restaurants. I know that lease negotiations are almost finalized with these various restaurants, so what's going to happen is we'll end up being back in here either on some type of management operation where we're, you know, physically operating the restaurants under a management agreement, or we'll be back in here with the tenant to personalize it to them, depending upon what the ultimate lease arrangements are. But for us to be able to solidify things with tenants, we need to get our hands on these liquor licenses now. So that was the purpose of this. So I did have some conversations with Ralph Sacramone, who is the executive director of the ABCC, about what's going on at the plaza or in the process to obtain the licenses and then move forward. In Massachusetts, there is no limitation on a license holding entity having X amount of restaurant licenses. There are limitations on package stores and retail convenience stores, depending upon number in a city or town or a state. Not the case for a restaurant. So as long as they all have separately defined licensed premises, which these do, not an issue. So unfortunately, Zach Lehan, who was the named licensed manager on this, came down with the flu in advance of this hearing, which I just was notified of today. And when I reached out to Sam Park to try to get Sam here, Sam is out of the country right now. So Sam wanted me to send a personal message that, you know, he doesn't like the fact that he's just sending a lawyer in here right now. He's very in tune with the private-public partnership that he has with this community about redeveloping that site, and wants to be here, or at least have Zach here. So what they asked me to do, as much as I'm sure you're in support of the applications, they want to pay respect to the board in that regard. They asked me to open up the hearing, you know, give some background, and then they want to physically come in at the next meeting, so that if you have any business type questions or anything, they'd be happy to answer those. I know a lot of the specifics about what's going on at the site. You may have some specific questions, but I'll leave it to those guys to give you personalized answers. So With that said, I would respectfully ask for a continuance to your next meeting. And then at that point in time, we'll complete the presentation, field any comments from the public or the board, and then ask the board to move it to a vote at that time.
I think it's really wise, and I really appreciate them wanting to do that. We would love to see them in person, ask them some questions.
Yes.
Certainly understand them getting sick and traveling this time of year. Everybody I know is sick, so it is no surprise that one or
Yes.
the other is ill at this point. Hopefully they recover quickly. But yeah, I'm all in favor of doing a continuance and then having them come in.
That would be great.
That would be helpful. Comments?
I would much prefer that because I know Sam's more likely to tell us the names of the companies than Mr. Nicosia.
Even if he intends not to.
Yeah, when I first embarked on this process, the first thing out of my mouth was, tell me the names of the restaurants, and I'll tell you whether or not I'm gonna get on board with them. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna tell you, but you can't tell anyone, you can't even tell your wife. And I'm like,
Fair enough.
okay, so I'm gonna leave it to those guys to, give you some further details on the nature of the restaurants they're considering right
All right. Adele, any questions?
But they're all good ones.
No, I have no
Okay,
questions.
Jackie?
I mean, I think it makes sense to do the continuance. It's not a big deal. I think I don't know enough about liquor licenses, and Sean and I talked about this a little bit beforehand, just understanding if it does make sense for us to issue them to SAM and TCI LHE, which I would love to know what that stands for so I can get it in my brain properly.
So TCI is their main entity that's actually developing the plaza. LHE is an acronym for license holding entity.
That's
So-
going to help me remember that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So the entity was actually created by me
Yeah.
for purposes of acquiring these licenses.
Yeah.
On the consultation with Ralph Sacramone.
Well, I have
Again,
some
the-
suggestions for naming convention in the future.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. No, I mean,
No, this is helpful.
eventually, we're gonna have, obviously, restaurant trade names and things that are gonna be in place here. But the issue is that as tenants come to the plaza, if you don't have a liquor license to give them,
Right.
their lenders are not allowing them to sign the leases and commit to the capitalization. So we have to have we have to have a license in hand to be able to do that. So this is an intermediate step to do that. And then it gives us two opportunities. We can either do it under a management agreement, as the liquor license applications provide for, so that, we have a manager come in, operate under a DBA. This is the license holding entity that operates the restaurant. We can do it that way.
Yep.
Or in the alternative, the tenant can come in here, we transfer the license to the tenant, either subject to a pledge to support the landlord's lease obligations, or potentially a pledge to support whatever their conventional lenders' financing requirements are for all asset collateral. It gives them that opportunity as well. But until the landlord has the licenses, we can't finish the deals. So,
Understood. Yeah,
That's very
makes
helpful.
sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
I have one other question.
Yes, sir.
So, 3 of these are already allocated for that location.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make commentary on the legislative process. This board will remember that town meeting a few years ago submitted a home rule petition to the legislature for 3 additional unrestricted all alcohol licenses, which we have successfully obtained in the past. However, in the wisdom of a legislator not near Tyngsborough, they would not grant us that home rule petition unless we limited it to, basically, it's most of Middlesex Road, but when you look at the parcels that could be developed, it is really just 440. So by assigning these, even if you don't necessarily know who's going to be there, there was no other place that these licenses could have gone.
For those 3, but what about the 4th license? Is my
The 4th
question.
was a prior special legislation that was also restricted to the northern part of Middlesex.
Middlesex
So all
Road.
4 of these are for northern Middlesex?
Correct.
Road?
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted to make sure of that, and then,
And we do have defined tenants.
because that was where I was going to go next.
So
is-
we're not, these are not pocket licenses.
Okay.
We have the tenants, but we can't finalize our deals until we get the
Exactly.
licenses.
Yep.
Because
Understood.
one of the things that I would like to understand would be timing, so that, I don't want to have a license sitting out there for, a couple of years while these things happen or whatever.
Yeah, so there's one unit that's going to be immediate. So as soon as we get a ABCC approval, we're gonna be right back in here either on the management agreement or flipping it to the tenant. And then there's one almost as immediate right behind it, and then the other two stagger a little bit, but not by much. When I say not by much, maybe just a few months as we finish the build-out.
Right.
Because they're trying to, they're gangbusters to finish this project right now. So and I say that because I know the names, and I know what the progress status is of the various units. So I would say in the calendar year 2026, all of these licenses will be in their final resting place.
So that would just be something that I would want to
Yes.
make sure of. So when
I'll have them talk about that.
Exactly, when they talk about that, because that might be something, we have run into those situations before where we're kind of stuck, sitting in limbo. So that would be those are the only items that I would have.
Good point.
Questions, comments?
Thank you. All right, so I think we're all set.
And I'm happy, if you have any other additional preliminary questions or anything, I'll try to answer them, or at least get it in my brain so that they're ready to answer them when they come in.
January 26th.
So are you fine with January 26th? Because that's our next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out when I'm gonna make a motion to continue to a period.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that I understand.
As soon as we can get in here, if that's the next one, then
Yeah,
that's the
that'd
next
be
one.
great. We'll put you on the agenda.
So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board continue this hearing to January 26, 2026.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, it carries 4-0. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
appreciate it.
See soon.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Great.
Item number 6 is the public hearing for Thai Elephant. You want to come on up?
Mr. Chair, we are happy to present an application for a new on-premises wine and malt license application from Thai Elephant Restaurant LLC at 130 Middlesex Road, Suite 5.
You want to go up to the middle table?
They are seeking permission to add wine and malt beverages for on-premises consumption to their existing operations. Their application is complete and the appropriate fees have been paid. The hearing was advertised in the Lowell Sun on December 15th and 22nd, 2025. The applicant mailed the butters notifications by certified mail on December 22nd. We requested feedback from any department having jurisdiction over this type of request, and none had any adverse comments. Then the applicant is here with you.
Thank you. Want to open another public meeting?
I would love to. Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board open the public hearing and waive the reading of the hearing notice and the legal ad.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, it carries 4-0. The public meeting is now open. Welcome.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to open it up to our board for some questions.
Well, I guess if you want to introduce yourself and explain the business and why you think that this license would be a good fit for your business and for the town.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sulinton Pasagon. I'm the owner of Thai Elephants Restaurant in Tyngsborough, 130 Middlesex Road, Unit 5. Yeah, I'm being here today. I would apply for the BRY license. Yeah, because a lot of customers asking about that. So my restaurants have been opened about 1 year ago and it's doing really good right now.
Good.
And we're planning to get a BRY license for the customer. And we will try to do the best we can for our customer. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've heard positive about the food, so I think it's a good natural progression for your business. So I have no other questions.
Okay, Select Person Gilfus.
It's already been almost a year? I feel like you were just here. Wow, time flies. Yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled that things are going well for you. You're right across the street from where I live. And I'm glad that residents are coming, that you have customers, that they're asking for more. That's great. I mean, that's what we want in town. That's the business growth that we're seeking. So really happy for you.
Thank you very much.
Select Person Coughlin. I always say the wrong name. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to start laughing. That's all right. I'm sorry. So I'm glad that things are going really well, and I think that the beer and wine license is a great next step.
Thank you.
That, I would appreciate that too. So, I have no other.
Okay, and I have no further questions.
I just have a question for Colin and Sean.
Yes?
Are there any liquor license restrictions that we should be aware of for this part of Middlesex or anything that
No.
we should be taking into
So
account?
this license is not issued under special legislation that the last four that were under discussion were. This license, which we have several of remaining, the availability is not in question. This could be issued anywhere in town that the select board felt so inclined, or transferred anywhere in town, if issued.
And we have more, like you just said.
Yes.
So, okay, awesome.
Okay, if there are no further questions, like Person Eldridge, you want to make a
hang on.
motion?
Yep. Mr. Chair, I move that the Select Board approve the application for an on-premises wine and malt alcohol license to Thai Elephant Restaurant LLC, located at 130 Middlesex Road, Suite 5, as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? That carries 400.
Oh,
Thank you very much for coming
Thank you
in.
very much.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
All success for you in the future.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move that the Select Board close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Public hearing is closed.
Imagine we did that in the right order.
You're all set. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank
Happy
you.
New
Wish you
Year.
much luck. I'll do better next time.
We all will. We all will. We're out of practice.
26th.
We did so much better last year.
Yes.
Number 7, Town Manager's Report. Right in
Thank
order.
you. I do hate to start on a sad note, but I just want to take a minute to acknowledge the passing of our former colleague and friend Joanne Schiffers, who we said goodbye to last week. Joanne served as the town clerk in Tyngsborough for over 20 years. For a shorter period before that, she was the assistant town clerk, but of course, her service to Tyngsborough goes far beyond that. She served on the Finance Committee, the Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as the committee that planned the Tyngsborough Bicentennial in 2008. She was a dedicated volunteer at Festival of Trees and Block Party. I think between her and her husband, they probably annually did hundreds of hours between both events. She was the money person, and even in retirement, she was also my source of macaroni and cheese here at Town Hall. So she lived in Tyngsborough with her husband, Mark, and they raised their 2 kids, Andrew and Danielle, in Tyngsborough. So we are incredibly sad to have lost Joanne, but I think that if you walk around here, you can see the lasting legacy that she's left behind. So I just wanted to start by acknowledging her passing.
Thank you.
Shout out to Miss McCoy's 4th grade class at Tyngsborough Elementary School on being selected as the winner for this year's MassDOT Name-a-Plow competition. Their name, Flake May, is proudly displayed on a District 4 snowplow this winter. So while paying attention to the road, if you're driving down Route 3, you may see the plow. Today is the first day of the fiscal year 26 senior tax work-off program. We've placed participants in 9 different departments, and the work that they'll do for the town ranges from filing to greeting residents to digitizing documents and much more. The program continues to be an incredible resource for the town and for our residents, and I'm grateful to all the departments who participate every year. As we start the new year, there are a handful of new laws that will go into effect here in the Commonwealth of particular interest to Tyngsborough. There's a new law that requires that any individual who operates a motorboat or other personal watercraft in the state complete a boating safety education course. This can be done online or in person, and the Department of Conservation and Recreation can provide information for those looking to complete the course. If you were born after January 1st, 1989, you have until April 1st of this year to complete the course. If you were born before January 1st, 1989, you have 2 additional years to complete the course. Hopefully this will help mitigate some of the reckless and dangerous boating activity that we've seen on Lake Muscuppick. It is enforceable by any law enforcement agency, so when we have the Marine Patrol out with Tyngsborough Police, as well as the Environmental Police. And so you'll have to have that certificate of completion on you when you're operating on a public body of water. On January 2nd, 2026, so-called cannabis cafes became permitted in the Commonwealth. These establishments allow adults to consume cannabis products at a licensed facility. Before one can open, a city or town must proactively adopt zoning that permits them. The reason I mention this is because Tyngsborough does not have compatible zoning, and so the consumption of cannabis on premise is still illegal and not permissible here in Tyngsborough. On a staffing front, I'm happy to share the promotion of Jacqueline Schnackerts from Executive Assistant to the Town Manager to the position of Director of People and Culture. Jackie has served in the town manager's office since 2022, and in that time has completely revamped our licensing process, the senior tax work-off program, and the annual town report. In fact, that's resulted in Tyngsborough being recognized twice now for our annual town report through the MMA's annual town report competition. The 2024 one, so the one we just finished, received first place this year. So at the MMA conference at the end of the month, we'll get that prize for Jackie. Jackie's also served as a member of the Board of Selectmen and of the Government Study Committee. She brings an incredible experience in process improvement, constituent services, and an unmatched familiarity with our staff to the new role. We've also been fortunate that she benefited from being able to work alongside Bridget for the last few weeks to ensure a smooth transition. Today is Jackie's first day in her new role, which is why she is noticeably absent. But on a positive front, I will no longer now confuse Jackie and Jackie. We've only got one Jackie in the room. Last week, Police Chief Sean Woods issued commendations to Officer Sean Karen, Sergeant Nathan Abdallah, and Detective Bethany Bonzar for outstanding service and professionalism. Officer Karen is commended for his off-duty efforts to rescue a man who was in medical distress during a unique and dangerous situation. Sergeant Abdallah is commended for his work to end a multi-jurisdictional pursuit through the use of stop sticks and ultimately for de-escalating the situation and bringing the subject into custody without injury to that subject or others. And finally, Detective Bonzar was recognized for her work leading a large-scale fraud investigation involving more than $800,000 and which resulted in a federal indictment and guilty plea. Chief Woods is on your agenda for your January 26th meeting with a few new hires, and so I'm sure he'll go into more detail about that, but obviously some incredible work.
Great.
And then just a few reminders and upcoming events. The Fire Station Building Committee announced last week a series of public information sessions to help bring the public along with our progress on the schematic design of a new fire department headquarters. The first one is this Wednesday in this room at 5 p.m. That's going to be ahead of our regular 6 p.m. Fire Station Building Committee. Also on Saturday, we have a kind of rolling information session from 10 to 12 at the Old Town Hall, and we're also doing station tours. So you can stop by the Old Town Hall, view the presentation, and then go get tours, or simply get tours if you don't want to see my presentation. But if you go to tyngsboroughma.gov, they're on the town's calendar. There's an infographic on social media, and we have physical flyers that are hanging up in the library and at the Center for Active Living. Bingo returns this week to the Center for Active Living. Join us on Wednesday, January 7th for evening bingo. Doors open at 5:30 and the game starts promptly at 6:30. The next installment is on January 21st. The Council on Aging will host a paint and sip with non-alcoholic beverages on Wednesday, January 28th at 6 p.m. at the Center for Active Living. And the Health Department and Town Clerk's Office will host the second rabies vaccine clinic and dog licensing event on Saturday, February 21st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Ironwood Park. That's in the new clubhouse. So if you haven't seen it yet, a good opportunity to see it. Walk-ins are welcome, or you can visit tyngsboroughma.gov to register ahead of times. Dogs must be on a leash and cats in a carrier, and the cost for a vaccine is $20.
The town recently completed a surplus auction of municipal vehicles and trailers. 10 items were bid on over the course of a couple of weeks in December, and I'm happy to report the completed sale of 7 of those items, netting the town more than $10,500 for equipment that frankly was just no longer in use or needed. The additional 3 items that were not sold may be relisted in the near future. We're hoping to complete the offload of that early this year.
Great, thank you. Open up to questions from the board. Select-Person Coughlin, questions?
No questions, but yeah, definitely a sad note for Joanne, and and a happy note for and congratulations to Jackie in her new role, and hopefully she's going to enjoy it.
Thank you. Select-Person Gilfus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, I echo the sadness about the loss of Joanne. I went to the wake last week, and being able to talk to folks about just the impact that she's had on the town, and like you said, Colin, I mean, she was just so involved in everything, so made a big impact. I am obsessed with Lake May. I think that I wish I had captured me reading this, because the joy that this brought me was just tremendous. So very cool that we had the opportunity to do that. And what, oh my God, there was something else I was going to say. Jackie rules, but there could only be one Jackie, so I'm glad it's me. The boating safety course is awesome. I highly recommend it. seriously, don't make that face at me. The environmental police has been offering it for years, and so you could elect to do it. Now you're required, but Colin, could you remind people when you say motorboat or other personal watercraft, what types of devices might that refer to that would be relevant for our lakes and waterways?
Anything on a body of water that is propelled by an engine of any sort. You aren't the engine, so if you're in a kayak, that doesn't count. But jet skis, small boats, large boats, anything with a motor.
Thank you. I think the jet ski is probably the one that people will be caught off guard. You know,
Correct.
it's not just driving a boat, but yeah, awesome. So yeah, that's it. The cannabis cafes, when we eventually legalize that, we can have our patent sip at the Center for Active Living.
Non-alcoholic beverages.
Non-alcoholic
For
beverages.
liability purposes, it's important that I keep reiterating that.
Non-alcoholic. All set. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Select Person Eldridge.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo, I was deeply saddened with Joanne's passing. She swore me in at her wake. I was with quite a few long-term police officers who also said that she had sworn them in initially. Just to give you kind of some bookends on there. She was also a neighbor of mine, so it was deeply saddened, and I express my deep condolences to Mark and to Andrew and Danielle on her passing, but her impact will be felt for many years. You know, on a lighter note, I think it's great. Jackie Schnackers is going to do a fantastic job in that role. She is so talented in a variety of areas, and she's definitely a people person as well. So I think she'll be fantastic. She'll do a terrific transition. I think you guys are going to have to figure out how you fill that other spot, which will be a challenge for you, but...
We're still learning how to answer the phone, Sean and I, but we'll get there.
So residents, please have some patience when you call the town manager's office. And then I'm sure we'll be talking quite a bit about we're going to talk about the fire station pieces, but the videos that are out there are fantastic. I think for those people who are used to looking at Instagram or Reels or TikTok or whatever it is, those small snippets of, usually it's drivel. Well, this is important information in small chunks. So I encourage residents to look at those. And I think the health department and the town clerk with the rabies vaccine, I think it's fantastic that they're being proactive and how they're dealing with that. My dog's already been vaccinated, but if she wasn't, I'd bring her down there. And she's also registered. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will echo everyone's thoughts about Joanne. I worked with her at a number of elections. I don't know if you recall, she swore me in the first day. She was on vacation in Florida, and I called her to swear me in over the phone because I had neglected to be sworn in before the first meeting. And she was very generous in doing it over the phone, so I thank her for that. But I've had nothing but good experiences with Joanne, so we'll miss her. Glad to see the thing on the boating safety. I know we had lots of problems last year. Not to say this will solve the problems, but this can only improve what we've seen in the past. You know, I have to say, I cringed a bit when I saw the thing that the rules on the cannabis cafe. I'm thinking, oh man, that's all we need is more traffic on Middlesex Road with people that are impaired. But thankfully, we have not passed a zone yet. But if and when we do, we will have to take all of that into account. But otherwise, good job today on the report. So thank you, Sean and Colin. Okay, on to item number 8, the fire station building project update.
Thank you. The Fire Station Building Committee had an off-cycle meeting last week to make a decision about whether or not to proceed with a single-story design. Also in contention was a 2-story design. The committee has spent the last 2 meetings discussing the pros and cons of both options, with an emphasis on us being cost-effective, but also maximizing space on the site for training and other elements that are important to the fire department's program. The designers were able to produce a site layout, which is currently available at tyngsboroughma.gov under the Fire Station Building Committee page, and if you've got the packet, I attached it to the back of this update. Which accomplishes both the goals of the fire department and uses that single-story building to maximize our efficiency and cost effectiveness. So that is what we're moving forward with. Our future meetings will get into the detail of that design, but now we've established that'll be a single story. I already teased some of the information sessions, but you can see in this that there's a series of them through February, a couple virtual ones, one at 11:30 on a Tuesday at the Center for Active Living, and then 2 different ones that we're having on the weekend. So we're really trying to reach people where we can. As I've said about budget office hours, obviously anyone can stop by town hall anytime. Jackie's not there to guard me anymore, so, but if people can't make these meetings, the Fire Station Building Committee meets generally every 2 weeks. Their whole schedule is already online. We have a section on the agenda for citizens' time. Adele is our chair and is very gracious to allow that. So there are ways for people to engage beyond these. As we get into late February, March, that's when we'll have more to share in terms of, almost firm cost estimates, what the design will look like. What we really wanted to do with our January and February events was to just give people the information they need to know about why we're talking about this now, why it's so important, and how we got to the point that we're at. So I shared with the select board the presentation that we'll give on Wednesday. For the first virtual meeting, which is January 14th, we'll record me giving the presentation and then make a recording of just me giving the presentation available on the town's website. And several of you have mentioned the videos that Tyngsborough Media has been putting out. I really am getting sick of hearing my voice, so this week we're releasing one with the chief talking about some of the technical pieces to it. So we're always open to suggestions on how we can better reach people, but I applaud Adele and the Fire Station Building Committee. They've really made transparency a key tenet of all the work. Our next meeting is Wednesday, 6 p.m. here at Town Hall. On Thursday, we have a working session with H2M. They're our designers, as well as their mechanical and electrical consultants to work on our MEP program, which will focus on the mechanical, the electrical, and the plumbing. That is open to the public. It won't be recorded because it's probably going to be 3 hours long, and it's really helping to understand what the mechanical systems will look like in the building, how it will compare to our other buildings. But again, folks are welcome to attend if they are so inclined.
Thank you. Open up to the board for questions. Person Eldridge, any questions?
No questions. Just to echo what I had said before, I think that the approach is fantastic. Adele, thank you for spearheading this. I think it's really important that we get the message out there. I do worry that there are people that won't take the message, so it's not for lack of trying. I do think that there are some fantastic opportunities for people who are so inclined. So I think that the approach is great. I think that the messaging is good. I think it's very fact-based, and it's missing a lot of the things that people don't like, where scare tactics, and it's informative, and it's meant to go through and give people the information that they need in order to make an informed decision. So, thank you.
Thank you. Person Gilfus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colin, have we been keeping metrics of the views of the videos and hits on the page?
Yes, I will provide the board in my Friday update a detailed version, but Roni runs into my office approximately every 3 days with updated metrics. They're performing very well.
Great.
He gets incredibly excited. He understands them a little bit better than I can, but we'll put together some sort of a graphic that I can share with the Fire Station Building Committee, and I'll share with you as well.
Awesome. And if you could try to keep sort of like a rough attendance of each of the
Absolutely.
outreach events. I mean, really what I'm trying to get to is hopefully getting a sense of like what percentage of the community might feel informed about this. So that way, when it does go to town meeting, we have a better sense of like what we're walking into. I just want to make sure that we feel like we have all of the information possible about how we're doing with the outreach before it, potentially is a surprise for us.
Absolutely.
So, great. Yeah, I mean, the content is great, so hopefully people are watching it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thanks. Person Coughlin, any
Yeah, I just want to give kudos to Colin, because without him, we would not be where we're at with the Fire Station Building Committee. I mean, he keeps all the balls in the air. I mean, he has a great rapport with the architects and the Fire Station Building Committee. Look to him for guidance. And I just want to say kudos. I think that this
We have fun.
We are
We're having
having
fun.
fun, and I can honestly say, when I drive through communities, I'm looking at their fire stations, like, and I've never done that
Suddenly
before,
locked
right? Like, oh,
in.
look at that. Oh, and I was up in New Hampshire, I'm like, oh, we need one like that. And yeah, so there's been a lot of awareness, and I hope that people come out in the next few weeks and months.
Thank you. And from my perspective, I know I've always said, transparency, and let's get to people in as many different places in town. And so I am very excited to see Town Hall, Old Town Hall, virtual, Center for Active Living, meeting people where they're at. And so, I share the concerns from the other select board members. We want to give as many people involved and give them as much information. And you referred to as scare tactics. I refer to it as misinformation and disinformation. We want to make sure that people aren't getting misinformed or disinformed about the particulars about the need for a fire station, and that there are multiple opportunities to get the full story. So thank you for that. I think you guys are doing a great job, and I hope that we get great attendance at all of these presentations. Okay, number 9. New business, the fiscal year 2027 initial budget presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So similar to previous years, I'll do a couple introductory slides. I'll turn it over to the finance director to go over the revenue, and then I'll talk about the expenditures and where we stand. I want to just remind folks that aren't familiar with the process that we are in the first week in January. This is an iterative process. This is incredibly early. And as this board is acutely aware from prior budget presentations, this is a working document that changes as we get closer to tri-board meetings and then ultimately town meeting, which is where the budget is set. Our budget approach hasn't changed. This slide is a duplicate from at least the 2 budget cycles that I've led in this role. We've always operated on a very conservative budget approach. We're conservative with our revenue estimates, and we're conservative with our expenditures. There are some later slides that kind of talk about areas of growth, or really lack thereof, to really demonstrate that this board, which ultimately approves what goes to town meeting, has always been incredibly thoughtful about when we add hours to departments, when we add positions. And so we'll demonstrate throughout this and throughout the budget process that we're delivering the core services, but I don't think that you'll find much excess or unnecessary items in the budget. In terms of the process, every year we move this up a week or 2 early. This year we had departments submit their request by December 4th, and we spent the intervening weeks meeting with departments multiple times to refine their requests, consider some of the new requests which are not included in the presentation, although I will talk about what they are, and then collaborating on a budget that works for everybody. So just a little bit about the landscape and what we're looking at. We've talked about for years that municipalities are generally in difficult financial situations, as are our residents, local businesses. 2027, which is the year we're planning for, that starts July 1st, 2026. That's the final year for almost all of our collective bargaining agreements. That's literally all of the collective bargaining agreements with the exception of the fire union, which is delayed 1 year. We had an early meeting with the school department a couple months ago where we initially agreed that they would stick to that 2.7% increase, which they had been on for 5 years as a part of the middle school agreement. And we'll talk more about that in different slides. Originally, this current budget, the one we're in today, fiscal 26, was that last fixed year. We had a very early meeting with our insurance trust, Maya, and we were warned to plan for a max insurance increase of 25%. You may remember last year we saw 17%. This is largely driven by, one, the healthcare economy is incredibly turbulent right now. Tyngsborough specific, we have what the insurance companies consider higher than average, much higher than average, certainly higher than desirable loss ratios. A loss ratio is the way that the insurance companies look at how much money they say they're losing. So it's a comparison of how much we've paid the insurance company in premiums versus how much they've paid out. And certainly, if they're paying out more than we're paying in premiums, they consider themselves at a loss. They like to see that number in the 80% range. Ours is over 110%. Obviously, we won't go into the specific cases, but the troubling piece of the loss ratio is that there's very little you can do to control that. When we look at, and we get quarterly reports of what our top losses, they call it, are, which is so insensitive, but it's issues that members are dealing with. They're not like diabetes because somebody wasn't eating healthy. They're not things that we could implement wellness programs. They're people with serious hereditary diseases. So I want people to understand that the loss ratio is not something that we can control. And unfortunately, just based on the way that we do health insurance, the insurance companies see it as a loss margin, and they're trying to make up for it in subsequent fiscal years. Obviously, we're aware of the $1 million contribution to the middle school. $900,000, as you're all aware, comes from the general fund. That's a specific line item in the budget for the last 2 fiscal years. And then $100,000 gets transferred from the Lakeview lease, which is revenue that the school department generates by leasing out the old Lakeview school. And as you all are probably acutely aware at your homes and in business, utility expenses are skyrocketing across town departments. On the revenue side, Toll Brothers has reached substantial completion. They're still building out some that will experience a small amount, but of their 100 units, 85 of them have already been built, occupied. Some of the new growth, and in future budget presentations, we'll actually pull up some of the new growth presentations that you saw 3-4 years ago when we talked about the $1 million contribution. Many of those projects are stalled, largely around utility access. So when we look at some of the bigger projects that we're waiting on, the assisted living facility at 84 Kendall Road, which town meeting changed the zoning for, we're told that they've got a developer that's ready to go. We don't have sewer capacity on that side of the bridge, so they're relying on a private sewer connection, which isn't being built until that project can build their second larger warehouse, which currently they haven't been able to build because all the tenants that they'd like require more electricity than National Grid has available. So there's a bunch of these utility access issues. The town has done the right thing. The planning board has permitted these projects. We've changed zoning, but for reasons that are beyond our control. The other thing, we have another large warehouse project that was permitted at 405 Middlesex Road. That's next to Nature's Remedy where the power lines are. That was permitted 4 or 5 years ago. The market for warehouses isn't what it was when that project got permitted. There have been a couple iterations of smaller projects that they've sought to do there, but none have come to fruition. So we are very much aware of that moving into fiscal year 2027. And then cannabis isn't growing as quickly as we had hoped it would. We never budgeted for a double, right? We knew that when Yellow House opened, it wouldn't be a double. We wouldn't see people spending twice as much. We certainly expected to see a little bit of a boost, particularly when Yellow House opened. That hasn't happened, and there are a variety of reasons you're seeing this trend kind of across the state. Remember, only 25% of the cannabis excise shows up in the general fund revenue. Town meeting has dedicated 75% of that to the road maintenance stabilization fund. So that's the landscape that we're in. I'm going to turn it over now to David to cover the revenue forecast.
Good evening. So how do we calculate the revenue? It's collaboration in town hall here between the assessor's office, my department, finance, economic development, building commissioner, and the town manager's office. Generally, we're looking at 5-year trends. As we get farther away from COVID, we'll expand a little more. We've been contracted a little bit because of that. Analyzing the current fiscal year trend to identify to see how the numbers are currently tracking. You'll see that a little bit. We anticipate new growth based off input from the departments above. Colin and I met with the building commissioner today, the town planner, and the assessor to discuss that. FY6 trending. So their earnings on investment and license and permits have really driven our growth over the last couple of years. Currently, licenses and permits are maintaining. We aren't expecting those to grow indefinitely. In fact, we're expecting them to slow down and even decrease going forward, based off what Colin had said with Toll Brothers. Hotels and meals, they're down currently, as well as that marijuana excise they mentioned. There might be a little timing element there because we haven't seen the second payment yet. It's our first day of the new year, and they come right at the end of each quarter. The reason we did, Yellow House, I believe, was only open for just June of the last fiscal year. So that's why we're not getting.
Yep.
So that's what we received in September. So it was so little that it really kind of blends in with the amount we were getting already. So we can't really base any data off of that. This is a little bit repetitive of what we just said. Toll Brothers, we expect are going to go down. Other permitting has gone up. Cannabis excise is underperforming currently, but it's a little to be determined. Here's our revenue forecast of the local receipts. You can see everything's kind of right within what our expectations. Again, these top two with the review and the Q2 payment, kind of mentioned the last two slides. There's a IRS return of funds that we have reclassified that we don't really want to classify as revenue anymore, and we will not be doing that in FY27. But you can see otherwise, within 130,000 at this point of the year, there's no worries. But the thing is as I've mentioned in prior meetings, we usually under budget our local receipts, and we're lucky enough that comes in, I got a graph that shows, comes in about 10% over what we budgeted. And then each year that's actually growing by 10%. That's a 5-year historical for us.
Yep.
This year, however, I'm really hesitant to go up at all. And so while I won't say only 500,000, but that's what 10% of these local receipts is $500,000. When we're talking about something like a health insurance increase, we're talking about millions of dollars, $1.3 million increase this year. So these are helpful, but they're not major drivers in the revenue. This is what I mentioned with the local receipts. As you can see, 2021 was affected by COVID, but coming out of it, you can see it's just about, here's 400,000 in 2022, 2023 looks like another 400,000, 500,000 for 24. Again, that's right around that 10%. Okay, and this is budgeted versus actuals. I tried to dive into to building permits a little bit. Probably tough to digest without a narrator, but so what I tried to do in the top part here is we are through November, right? That all our revenue is recognized through November. So that's what that top square is, where it says building permits only. The 209,000 was from 23, 287 was from 24, and so on. Now going up is the license and permits total at the end of November. So that is included. The building permits is 209,000 of that 350. And then the total received in the fiscal year is the total actual amount we received. Why would I do this? Well, this is how we use our trend data. So what this is saying is in 2023, as of November, we had received 43% of our license and permit revenue. Okay, so it's a little tough to put on paper, but again, so for 2024, same exact percentage actually, 43% of our license and permit revenue was received by November. So if you use our 3-year average, that's 48%. On 2026, how we're projecting, we've received $825,000 already for license and permits. $585,000 of that is building permits, okay? So we've received 70% of the budgeted amount that we had budgeted, okay? So again, we under budgeted, as you can see. So going down, I just wanted to break down the entirety of the years. Building permits is making up about 70% of 2003, 24, and 25. Obviously, it looks way over in 26 because we under budgeted, and it's projecting to that 1.7 million. How do I get the projections? On the bottom here, just because, just going back to that last, the local receipts sheet, where it projects to, what was it, 1.48 million? I'm showing you how I got that number. So if we used the 43% from above and say the 825,000 that we've received in '26 is 43% of the amount we're gonna receive, then the projected amount would be 1.9. We use 24. I'm just showing that if it was equal to any of the 3 years before. We follow along that methodology?
I'm following the math, yeah?
And then, using the average, I got the 1.7. And then you'll see that on that spreadsheet that I showed before, the local receipts, we used 55% as the barometer. So that's not quite as much as it was last year. And the higher the number, the more conservative, right? We want to say that we've received, it's not most, because we're talking about 55%, but more. If we're said less than 40 or less than 50%, you're going to really project higher. And again, this is the building and permits. We think we know what's going to happen in the future with it going down, right? Because Toll Brothers is closing up. So I just wanted to break down, because this is a major drive over the last couple of years. The 5-year look back, you can see year over year, starting in 21 to 22, was it $800,000? Going from 22 to 23, we're looking at what, 1.6. You'll see in 24 and 25, they look like significant jumps in revenue, but you gotta realize that exempt debt kind of creates an artificial balloon, because while it allows us to bill more, it's 1-for-1 with the debt payment we have to make. Not necessarily in 26, because we're actually going to we bill the $2 million that were of the exempt debt for the school, but $900,000 of that comes to the general fund. So we bill the $2 million, we pay out to $2 million, and then the extra $9 comes from the town. So revenue forecast going forward. So my assumptions here, I had new growth with an average of 500,000. That might be a little optimistic. Today, like I said, we went through with the building commissioner and the assessor, and it's going to be in the 4 to 5 range. So if it's, generally speaking, if we're going to say 4 to 5, we should probably be using 4. I used a little less than 1% increase in state aid. Like I had mentioned, a level projection of local receipts. The reason I did that, yes, the permits will go down, but I believe both the motor vehicle excise and cannabis excise will increase. So there will be kind of an offset between those.
Okay.
And then fringe indirect, those are our other available sources that we get from both of our enterprises, the sewer and fire. Those, I have them at about $300,000 a year. Those will increase with utilities and insurance, but I tried to keep it level just because they're not a huge source.
That's the last revenue slide. It probably makes sense to stop there for questions for revenue before I dive into expenditures.
Open up to the board, Mr. Eldridge.
So let me start with the licenses and permits, because you went through the detailed explanation. So I see how you got to what our projection is going to be, somewhere around the 1.7 million range. However, you started it off by saying we're expecting that licenses and permits are going to go back to pre-Toll Brothers days. Now, I know that we've raised the rates, the fees for individual items, but yet, if I look at what the 2027 projection is for licenses and permits, it's 1.45 million. Yet, if I look at like our budget for 26, it was 1.2, and then our actuals in 2025 was 1.1, and then just a little bit over $1 million in '24. I'm wondering if we see that drop, that 1.45 just seems, it seems big if we're gonna go back to the pre-Toll Brothers days. And I'm not saying we have to be accurate, right? Because we don't wanna go too conservative, because then we have too much of a deficit, so.
I think there's a wording issue on my part that I should fix.
Yep.
I think what I meant by that is that we'll be seeing increases that were similar to what we saw prior to the Toll Brothers. So prior to the Toll Brothers, I think we probably upped the receipts close to $200,000 from what we budgeted the year before, which lines up with the prediction I think that we have for revenue here. What we won't see is the continual kind of dramatic, if you will, increases. So when we look at some of what we'll see for building permits in 2027, there are some housing developments that you'll hear about on the 26th that I think will drive that number up pretty healthily.
Yep.
The warehouse project is still actively in the construction phase, so we still will see permits from that, as is the really large temple. The temple won't help us from a new growth perspective, but that will certainly maintain. So I should have clarified, the building permit revenue won't go down. We won't be able to count on the big increases that we saw in the heat of Toll Brothers, if that makes sense.
So what I'm hearing is that 1.45 is kind of a blend. You know, we were running it a little over 1.7 or maybe even 1.8, depending upon what the number is actually, right? If I look at the forecasts of those, we're expecting a little bit of a drop, but it's not going back to 2025.
Correct, and I will fix the wording in the presentation that, my wording certainly led you to believe that it would go back to like the 800,000 number. Nothing is going down,
Got it, okay.
to be clear.
So then it goes, I know there's the piece that you've got with the, and I know that some of these it's still early and like, for example, I'm not gonna get into other excise and cannabis excise because I think that we still need to see what some of those Q2 payments are. Right now, it's speculative at this point. We're gonna be conservative, but like the miscellaneous revenue one, you have a little note in there in the IRS refund. And what we're between for 2026, what was budgeted and what we're projecting, there's a big gap there. And then we're doing a big drop from the budget from 26 to 27, from 200,000 to 50,000. Can you help me understand what the IRS refund stuff is? What IRS refunds is Tyngsborough getting that's going to fall into that bucket?
Well, so it was more of a reclassification of so when we do a quarterly, the payroll submission, and then there's a return of funds it's not easy to determine the amount and how we want to classify it. Sometimes classify as revenue isn't really accepted, and so we don't, because it's hard to measure, we don't really want to portray it in our revenue anymore.
In looking at our past, when David and I were looking at the revenue, at least for the last 10 years, when we sort of make prepayments to the IRS on a variety of things, Medicaid, taxes, we've always, because of some of the ways that like the final payroll for teachers is a little wonky, it's like a giant sum, we've always kind of pre-deposited, if you will, more than we should have. In the past, we've always, probably 3 finance directors, a couple town administrators, we've then accounted for that refund in the general fund revenue. In reviewing it as a part of this process, that really should go back into where it came from. So we're not giving the IRS more in the end, it's a level out, but we didn't think it was appropriate for us to continue to count on that for revenue. We didn't make that change, though, prior to adopting the fiscal 26 budget, which is why you'll see that number is trending down. But we are eliminating that assumption from future budgets. So it's more a matter of where we're putting that money. Again, for 10 years, plus we counted it as revenue. We just don't think that that's the appropriate avenue.
But so does that go into, if you get money back, I see it's not revenue, but it has to be an offset then perhaps on the expense side, right? So is that going under the personnel area because it was payroll and health insurance and Medicare and all those?
Yeah.
Is that where it's going?
Partially, I mean, some of the salaries obviously come from individual departments, but yes, largely it's gonna go back into the Medicaid area on the personnel.
Okay, yeah, because I was just sitting there, I'm like, whenever I see big jumps, I'm
Yeah, it's a
saying-
real reorganization, I think, to better align with the way it should be reported.
And then the other, I didn't quite, I mean, I have it in the spreadsheet, but I don't know that I see it in the revenue forecast that was in the presentation. Just below pilot, in our spreadsheet, the tracker that you've got, there's other available sources. It's got a budget of $450,000 for 2026, but then in 2027, we're talking 300,000?
So the
What's other available sources?
Other available sources is that indirect I was mentioning. That's indirect and fringe is the insurances and use of the building that we charge the enterprise accounts.
Got it.
Now, there, prior PEG could be included or not included in our budget, and thus that is either supplementing or not supplementing our budget. We do not have PEG in it this year, so we do not have that transfer in this year.
Yeah, so those are the types of things, you're cleaning stuff up, it sounds like, right? You're sitting there going, we used to do it this way, it really shouldn't be done that way. Let's clean it up, but footnotes or whatever, just sit there and say, because there are gonna be people like me going through this saying, what do we got there? So that would be helpful. And then, I mean, the only other one is pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes. So our actuals in 2025 were low.
I got you. So if you look historically, it's right at so pilot is an agreement. So it's not a unexpected, we have a receivable for pilot. So we know pretty much exactly to the penny. Now in '25, there was a dispute and a refund, and that really shot the actuals for the year. However, we have agreements back in place, and
we do? Because that was
not for the 35 that's in there, right?
Well, because I think the big drop was Drake Water. They were doing payment in lieu of taxes.
I'm saying the number that we have in here
for 2027 is accurate. Is we have agreements for those?
Yeah.
Because we used to be in the 35, and then I know with Drake Water, it was they stopped paying it.
No, the 38,705.
Yeah, you think the 38,705 is legit versus the 20.
The exact number we're going to.
That's what we have commits from outside of Drake it. Got it. Because that's what I just want to make sure, because I'm like, I know that we had done some things around pilot, and I wasn't sure whether we were going to expect some other things from some of the folks that are putting in new things that aren't paying property taxes. That's where you hope to see some.
That is a conversation that we'll need to have.
Exactly.
The only other thing I note on Drake Water is that technically the way the law sees pilots, because we don't have an agreement, we would still capture it. It'll be a dispute though, but we do need to recircle with Drake Water. So they've not gotten out of their pilot. We've just not formalized the new agreement yet.
No, they said that they were no longer paying. They said, we don't have to pay it, so we're not going to pay it. Where they're paying for are property taxes.
Correct, which is still reflected in this number.
In the pilot?
Correct, because it's not the law doesn't treat them as an act. We're entitled to get a payment in lieu of taxes, basically. It's in that number. It's not it should have gone up with the values.
Yeah.
But it hasn't because they're not paying anything above just the land value.
Okay.
But it will still show up in that pilot category.
Got it. Okay. That's all I got on the revenue. There's some others, and like I said, I think a bunch of these, we're gonna have to see what some of these payments are. I know it's hard to trend it based on November, because you're only got, 5 months worth of info that's in there, but.
If I can add to your, Drake at Water is 9,700.
Yeah.
Not, 9,700.
Just the value. Yep. Okay. I've taken
Select Person Gilfus. Questions?
I'd like to go back to Select Person Eldridge for more questions. It's going to take me like 6 of these budget presentations to feel like I understand this, so I'm just going to keep absorbing. I think the piece that was a bit confusing for me, if you could go to the percentage, yeah, this one here. The calculation that you described about the 43, 43, 56, averaging to 48, I don't need you to answer it now, but I didn't understand that at all. So when it comes time to present this again or to show it to residents, if that could be presented differently, that would be helpful. You don't need to answer it now.
Noted.
Maybe they understand it and that's fine, but just, yeah,
You
explaining
can
it.
probably blame me for some of this, because I had asked some questions, and I think David tried to give me a good explanation as to how that was. There may be an easier way for us to present this,
So if you.
because I understand where you're coming from.
If you cut out 3, 4, and 5 in this, the
Yeah.
columns here, and just use that average number, you are now using the exact number that we're using to project for the year. So, but what I was showing was, if you said our numbers are gonna go back to 2023 numbers,
Yeah.
well, in 2023, we received 43% by this time. This is my answer to, we're gonna go back to 2023. All right, then let's use 2023's numbers. But if you're asking me how I project for 20, I'm not helping.
I don't know. I think my question is maybe like a larger question, which is like, how do communities determine how to project based on like all of the things that are happening in the world that we don't have control over? Like, how could anyone project if cannabis sales are going up? Like, that sort of the question is like, how the heck do we do any of this budgeting?
Yeah, it's not easy. A lot
glad
of it
that
is through
you're
these
paid to do
formulas
that.
that David puts together that look at where we were last year, how much we collected. The thing about this is that we will we always overperform,
Yeah.
as David demonstrated a few slides. And so what the state will look at year over year is that we met our local receipt projection, like we covered ourselves.
Yeah.
So there's some fluctuation, but some of it is incredibly tough. It's incredibly tough to predict what will happen with the cannabis market. We know that they're more ubiquitous now than they were before. So we look at 3 years worth of data. Sometimes if we have to, we'll go back 5 years.
But do we do that in a vacuum, or like, does the state say like, hey, by the way, like, here's a calculation that you should take into account, or like?
The state doesn't give us calculations, but David and our DOR rep go back and forth when he does the tax rate recap.
So there's like input from other places.
And he has to create things just like this spreadsheet. If DOR says, well, help me understand how you got there, he's creating spreadsheets like this to basically justify it. It's really a reasonable test, but every community is different. We're uniquely situated on the border.
Yeah.
So like we probably could get away with projecting higher cannabis sales than somebody who's in the middle of the state who has a bunch of different options. But you're right. I mean, it's not super scientific. And a lot of it is looking at what you did the last couple of years. Fortunately for us, as David demonstrated, we still outperform our conservative projections, but it is tough.
That's helpful on both sides. I think like it does feel more clear that there's the science of the numbers, there's like knowing the dollar amount that we've received as of today and like what that means and what that percentage is. But then there's the less tangible pieces, which is we know that Toll Brothers is going to bring less revenue. Like, we know that, but the paper doesn't say that unless we tell it that. So understanding like how we factor that in and how much we budget for is hard data or like close to hard data versus how much is it speculative. I think that might be helpful for me to understand, which is like the difference between projections and speculation, I guess, if that makes sense. But I thank you for doing the work that I don't want to do. So.
You are having existential.
I am
crisis.
having a crisis. Yeah,
We got you.
thank you.
it-
There's
is
no
it-
questions, it's just vibes.
Selectperson Gilf, I do this every time I look at you.
Tell him,
Stop
give him a
looking at
name
me.
tag.
Selectperson
I
Coughlin.
know.
And face it towards
Yeah.
the chair.
Eventually I get this right.
All right. So this is my first foray in this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had a lot of questions, but I'm not going to, get into them tonight. I guess my question had been, and thank you for asking about this, the pilot, because how did we go from 4888 to like $30,000, right? So, but I think I understand sort of how that transpired. But some of the other stuff, like, I don't know, the motor vehicle excise. So do you just do like 2.5% increase year over year for something like that? Or like how, I mean,
So I'll use historical trends for that.
yeah,
I think generally speaking, motor vehicle does go up around that. I'd say that's probably like a 5-year average, being honest. Now, just to add to Jackie's question before, and to help with but the state is only going to allow you to project what you actually received the year before, okay? So there is no increase. You're not allowed to budget an increase unless you can explain it, okay? And so that is kind of the contra to what you're saying with the negatives.
Yeah.
Right, but that's the same, use a baseline of what you got the year before, assuming it wasn't a drastic change, right? So if last year felt normal, then you kind of use that as a baseline, and then the state will allow you to increase if you have, we got another dispensary coming on board, or your motor vehicle goes up. For the last 5 years, it goes up 2.5%. They'll allow that. They don't know the license. They don't know every town's nuances. But so when we're developing the budget for them, they look at the other side, right? They look at all increases. Anything that I have an increase has to be demonstrated why. Every single one has to be explained. And then for us, we will take a step back when we need to step back. And they're not going to argue with us about saying you're not going to get less revenue. Because again, we have to balance the budget, so we're not going to hamstring ourselves. So does that kind of answer your question? Is you're going to see most of them, especially this year, nervously keeping things level. So I think motor vehicle excise is one of the few that I even increased, right? Because I'm just not feeling growth across the board.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I share Jackie's concerns about, when is a projection speculation and when is it science? And we don't know that, right? And so, like the cannabis revenue, we'll know a little bit more in Q2. I'd love to have another quarter behind us, right? Because initially, we all thought that was going to be a very successful business, and it's looking like it's really slow to ramp up. And I worry about the permits. Toll Brothers is trailing down. Though we say we'll look back and we'll go back to, pre-23 trends, are the economic factors, in the country the same as it was now, the same as it was in 23? Is there the same level of optimism? Is the same level of spending? A lot of things that we'll never know, right? There's so many variables. I worried less about projecting too much and having to explain to the state versus projecting too little and having to explain. Maybe I'm just being overly conservative, but I just worried that some of the numbers. Do we really know all the things that impacted the numbers several years ago, and are those repeatable now? Taking off things like Toll Brothers, scaling off, the Yellow House and some of the others. Is it that numerical, or are there a lot of other factors that we need to consider when we do projections? I mean, it's an inexact science.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would point out, and David says this all the time when we're meeting, when town meeting approves the budget, they're approving the expenditures, not the revenue piece.
Yeah.
And so by the time we go to do the tax rate recap, we have a whole fiscal year in. And certainly in a collaborative process with DOR, which approves it, you know, if something, the benefit of us starting from a very conservative baseline is that if we get a whole fiscal year in and cannabis is trending incredibly well, but we are nervous maybe about the building permits, when we submit the data to the state, we'll increase our projections on cannabis and reduce. So it continues to be a moving target until the state approves the tax rate recap. We demonstrated very early on in the budget process to show how we anticipate to fund the budget that we're presenting. That doesn't take away from the fact that both of you, all four of you, are correct that it's not really a perfect science. But I think that our process, and we've demonstrated in slides, has worked because whether it's one area really overperformed and another underperformed, we do always have year-end positive results.
Further questions, Mr. Eldridge?
I'm waiting to see expenses.
Let's plow onward, sir.
Well, I will actually take over on the expenses.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so what I'm presenting tonight is a level service budget. The difference between a level service and a level budget is obviously that the cost to provide the exact same service we provided this current fiscal year goes up every year, whether it's through staffing or utilities or just general expenses. So what this budget includes, $55.7 million, is the $900,000 general fund contribution to the middle school. As a reminder, the general fund doesn't show that $100,000 because it comes from the Lakeview lease, which is not through the raise and appropriate function. It assumes the 25% increase in health insurance. That alone accounts for $1.3 million. I've talked to Greater Lowell Tech. Our assessment will go up at least 20%. That reflects an increased enrollment of 15 students next year, debt assessments, and projecting a 4% increase in transportation. But what I'll note is they're going out to bid now for another 5-year transportation contract. And even on we were meeting with the school department this morning, even on the school department side, that's looking to be like a 5.7% increase. And that's a contract we locked in 4 years ago. So I say that I'm assuming a 20% increase because it is a real possibility that that goes up slightly when they settle their transportation costs. This assumes a 2.7% increase to the Tyngsborough Public School budget and a 26% increase in property insurance. That is almost entirely a result of the new middle school being added in fiscal year 26. The actual insurance rate increase for property is beautiful. It's like 2.2%. It just so happens that we, of course, added a new building. So this next slide shows the comparison between the total request, which is the level service budget, and the projected available funds that David just talked about. So it assumes $500,000 in new growth. And as you can see, even with that, we are projecting a 1.99, almost $2 million deficit. I want to just start by saying that we are projecting that. We aren't in a deficit. This is based on the budget that you have here today. And there are several other slides that will cover this. But I want to just remind people, both here and at home, that literally every single one of our neighbors, with the exception of the city of Lowell, for the last 2 fiscal years at least, some longer, have been in this exact same position with much bigger numbers at this stage. So this isn't a crisis in Tyngsborough. This is an issue facing cities and towns everywhere. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail about how we're going to address it. But in short, our revenue is expected to increase basically just enough to cover the increase in health insurance. Clearly, that's not going to work. I did want to just identify the items that were requested in the fiscal 27 budget from department heads that are not included in that number. The Department of Public Works Facilities Division sought the conversion of a part-time custodian to a full-time custodian. The Department of Public Works sought to restore seasonal employees for the summertime, both in cemetery and highway. That's something that I think we did away with over 15 years ago. The police department sought a new patrol officer, which ultimately would add to their school resource officer contingency. And the fire department, for I think now the 3rd fiscal year, sought a fire inspector. None of these new positions are included in the current budget proposal.
Can I just ask about the school
please
rate?
stop me at any point.
I remember at the beginning of the school year, the school resource officer, like there was a period of time where they were working that out. Is there currently a school resource officer? Did that get,
Correct.
that got filled?
This would have allowed the school department to basically have, or the police department, my apologies, to have an SRO dedicated to the Norris Road campus.
Yep.
And an SRO that would be dedicated to the elementary school, Academy of Notre Dame, and Innovation Academy.
Whereas now it's one officer
For
that.
all of those.
Okay, thank you.
Primarily, though, at the Tyngsborough Public Schools. He will occasionally spend time at Greater Lowell. We do not currently have a formal program with NDA. It's a private school. But he would assist over there.
Thank you.
Okay, so for those that aren't familiar with deficit, again, it's basically based on our revenue projections and what we need to fund a level service budget. We don't have enough revenue to cover it, so our expenses are greater than our revenue. I also want to be totally clear and cognizant of the circumstances. This is completely, totally, unequivocally unrelated to the tax billing issue we talked about at our last meeting. Remember, that was an underbilling in fiscal year 25 that we are being required to make up in the current fiscal year, and we are talking about a budget for fiscal year 27. So in no uncertain terms, there is zero relation. The obvious question, of course, is do we have any cushion in the budget? And when I say cushion, I mean something that could be removed with very little or no impact to the services that residents expect. The answer is no. Last year we had the last remaining item of cushion. It sounds so childish, but it's, you know, areas where there was some padding, if you will, in the budget. Although, of course, the DPW would argue that this wasn't cushion. But we were able to remove the $300,000 road contribution from the general fund without laying people off, without impacting services. And we were fortunate that last year was the first time we saw a significant increase in Chapter 90 funding, so it happened to be a wash. But aside from that, there is no cushion, no obvious cushion in the budget that you're looking at. It assumes the same staffing level, so no new positions, and their recurring expense lines, of course, adjusted for inflation and in some cases contractual obligations, whether it's software or the like. Is this uncommon? In Tyngsborough, yes. We've had some really positive years, but across the Commonwealth, no. Again, I mentioned that each of our bordering communities, with the exception of the city of Lowell, has had a projected deficit in each of the last 2 fiscal years, some even longer. In some cases, there were cuts made that were effective in reducing the projected deficit, but many have what are called structural deficits, which, unless they do something drastic like an override or find new revenue sources, will continue. We are not in a structural deficit. We didn't have a deficit last year, we didn't have a deficit the year before, but we have a unique combination of factors. And the most unique is that we have a self-imposed $900,000 contribution to the middle school from the general fund. What I want to explain on this is this was a commitment that both the select board, the finance committee, and the school committee made as a part of an effort to make the middle school more affordable for people. The agreement was made with new growth projections that I think were probably a little overly optimistic, and in a different time, right? Things changed in the economy, things changed with what the market was like. But to put into perspective of the challenge, we had our assessor pull the new growth that we've got in the last 3 fiscal years simply from Toll Brothers, and it was $835,000 collectively over 3 years. We didn't even generate the new growth from Toll Brothers that we thought we would to cover that $1 million. So essentially that was all of our new growth. There was some smaller new growth. Mm-hmm. That means that the only way our budget could increase was with Prop 2.5%. As a part of this agreement, we agreed that the part of our budget that represents more than half would go up 2.7. We cut out all the new growth and said it would go to the middle school debt, and we agreed to let one part of the budget increase more than Prop 2.5. So I put this line here to say that this is a unique situation in Tyngsborough. It's not a structural deficit. It is a combination of the new growth not being as optimistic as I think we thought it would be when this compromise was made, and us following through with the compromise. An obvious question would be, has our budget planning led to this? I can speak, of course, for the general fund side. I'll be recommending at the end of this meeting that we have a joint meeting with the school committee to go into more detail about their side of the budget, which I couldn't even begin to explain. But on the general fund, we haven't added a new full-time position in the last 3 years. We have converted 3 previously part-time positions to full-time. In the current fiscal year, as this board knows, we did away with a part-time dispatcher budget line in favor of an 8th full-time dispatcher, which has helped mitigate prior year's challenges around overtime. It's still a little bit early for us to say if that was as effective as we hoped it would be. Carrying that 8th position is in the budget you see today. And so as we get closer to February and March, if it's not as effective as we'd hoped, we'd go back to 7 full-time and staffing the part-time line. Now, that won't result in a net savings of a whole 8th dispatcher salary because we had previously budgeted about 40 grand for part-time staff. So then we added probably $35,000 for making it a full-time. Our goal, and it's looking like it will hit it, but we'll confirm in a few months, is that that will offset our overtime spending. But that's the big change that we made this current fiscal year. But again, that was converting part-time staff to a full-time. The last full-time position that we added was a 5th firefighter to the fire department staffing. That's for during the day, and that was in fiscal year 2022. I did want to address our current plan to create a veteran services cluster with Drake-It. That will be largely budget neutral, if not result in a savings for Tyngsborough, because we are splitting the cost of that with Drake-It. So Drake-It's expected to approve that at their next meeting, which is on the 13th. We would take all of our salary expenses plus benefits, so health insurance, Medicaid, all of those other items, and split that in half, and Drake-It would pay half of it. So that will technically result in a new admin assistant, but it's not at the expense of the budget, if that makes sense. I'm not going to go through every single one of these slides, but I did add for the board's review, and it's also in the packet, and this will be on the fiscal 27 budget page tomorrow, an analysis of all of the general government departments that fall under the general fund. Their current full-time, FTE stands for full-time equivalent. The reason we use full-time equivalent is because some departments have like 2 part-time people that we're counting as 1 full-time, if that makes sense. And then a note which will highlight when the last increase was. And really what I wanted to demonstrate here is that even though we had a couple really good years with new growth from Toll Brothers, it wasn't like we rushed to the bank and added new positions. We increased staffing. You can see here that for the most part, our staffing has remained the same. In some cases has gone down over previous years. And again, this was really just an attempt to show that it wasn't that we just threw all these positions. A lot of cities and towns are facing a crisis right now because they use their ARPA funds to hire positions. We used ARPA exclusively for one-time capital expenses, so we're not having that same problem. So again, I'm not going to go through each slide. Happy to answer questions in individual departments, but this was just our attempt to show that our staffing has grown incredibly modest, if at all, over the last 5 years. All right, on the expenditure side, that's the other half of the budget. The largest drivers, as we've talked about, are health insurance, the utilities, the cost to maintain our vehicle fleet, as well as facilities upkeep. Health insurance in 2026 increased 17%. We expect it to increase 25% in FY27. Prior increases were in the 6 to 8 range. That's not sustainable, and I have a future slide that talks about what we're looking at. Utilities are up. Again, everybody sees this at home and in their businesses. Electric and gas are increasing at incredible rates. The cost to maintain vehicles, especially in DPW, which has a much older fleet, and even the fire department is getting it's becoming very expensive. And, so capital has a very difficult task between weighing, do we continue to spend money on old vehicles, or do we try to buy them now, even though some of these vehicles are incredibly pricey? And then one that I think is often overlooked is just the cost to clean, maintain, and operate facilities. You think of our Center for Active Living. That building was donated to the town, recently celebrated its 10-year anniversary. So we're now hitting the point where mechanical systems need to be replaced, where things that we didn't have to deal with are now all of a sudden coming online. We've had to reinvest in the police department because we've made it clear that we're focusing on a fire station and the police department is staying where it is. Capital has helped with a lot of this, and I think if you look at prior capital plans, they've given us the flexibility to say, okay, well, for police, you've got a host of projects that need to be completed. We'll make one project out of it. But even in this building, our sprinkler system is now past its useful life, and so we're dealing with patchwork repairs. So these are things that people don't generally think about that are becoming more costly as we move on. So immediate steps, because as everybody here knows, and hopefully people at home know, we have to adopt a balanced budget. We can't not adopt a balanced budget. So this morning we met with the school superintendent and the business administrator. They're going to go back to the drawing board, sharpening their pencils. I'll be asking the chair to schedule a joint meeting with the school committee for your 26th meeting so we can understand what went into their fiscal 27 budget planning and what role can they play in helping shape meet this deficit. On Wednesday, I've scheduled a mandatory department head meeting, and we're going to go through an exercise where departments will zero out all of their expense lines, minus anything that is contractual. So like our permit software, we're in a contract. We can't stop using it. And then once we've zeroed it out and only added contractual stuff, as silly as it sounds, every department will have to come before me and David and justify every penny that is going into their expenses. As a silly-ish exercise, we looked at what happened if we level funded our expenses, which, let me just be clear, is not totally possible everywhere. We could probably save close to $250,000 just through that exercise alone. On the health insurance front, there's no substantial immediate step that we can take to alleviate the issues in 2027. We have brought on, and hired is probably a wrong word because they haven't charged us for this, but we brought on an independent healthcare consultant who is reviewing our current plans. In February, is going to issue an RFP to see what kind of rates we could get if we went out on our own through a trust. Make no mistake, we can't form our own trust, but just us looking will apply pressure to Maya and hopefully drop our increase next year a percentage or two. In the meantime, we're working with our unions to identify the best long-term option. There's really only one. There used to be a host of options. You could join regional trusts. We were in one for a while, and in 2018 we left. That has since folded. There's maybe 2 regional groups still standing. One is out in the Berkshires, and I think there's one on the Cape that's folding into the GIC. Our really only option is to look at joining the Group Insurance Commission. It's the state-run plan. More and more municipalities do it every single year. Their increase, I think the average increase this year was 12%. So certainly that's still a high increase, make no mistake. But this will require work with the unions to make sure that we're delivering the plans that our employees expect. And then, hopefully through things like the MMA 351 for 351 report that they issued to the legislature. I know a candidate for the state senate was here. We'll have a tri-board meeting with Representative Gary. We sent letters last week to the state senate, or 2 weeks ago, but just insisting on the state returning more taxpayer money to Tyngsborough through unrestricted government aid and Chapter 70. Obviously, Chapter 90 is great, and having that increase helped us, but UGA, as they called it, it's an incredibly ugly term, that would allow us to spend it anywhere in the operating budget, so that could help with the deficit, and Chapter 70, of course, would be a help for the school department. So, upcoming steps, once our zero expense exercise is complete, we'll have updated projected deficit numbers for you at your 26th meeting. Again, I'll work with the chair to see if we can schedule a joint school committee meeting with the select board on the 26th. Once we have that number, and once this board has a better understanding of the school's budget, I think is a more appropriate time for us to talk about what the options are. We're going to continue to review and analyze our revenue trends for the current fiscal year. We'll obviously monitor the state budget, but as you all probably know, the governor doesn't release her budget until the end of January, early February, and then it doesn't make its way completely through the legislative process until we've already adopted a budget. So, so the message is we've got work to do. We are better off still than many of our neighbors are, but we understand that we need to eat that deficit. It's a term that I keep using, and live within the projected revenue that we expect to have. And so, happy to answer questions on the expenditure side, the deficit side, things that we're taking, but I think that we'll have better clarity on what the paths are after you've had a joint meeting with the school committee, and we can talk about, what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll open up to some questions. Which direction should I go? Select person Eldridge.
So I only have about 30 line items I'd like to go through. I'm only kidding. No, because you're going to go through those, you've asked them to go to the drawing board. I don't think it's in our best interest to go through the expenditures. There will be some questions on some of them. Obviously, the key is going to be understanding which ones we're contractually obligated to versus which ones we have some factors. I think the big one is going to be the school department and having it broken down. One number isn't going to quite cut it, so we're going to need to see what those things are. I think residents are going to need to understand that, especially because, for example, Greater Lowell Tech, the increase is $400,000. Now, some of that is because of existing increases in their enrollment from Tyngsborough. Some of it is capital, and some of it is just we now have 116, I think, last year, students there. So the Tyngsborough contingent at the Tech has gone up, and the enrollment at Tyngsborough Public Schools has gone down. And so it's really hard for us to see increases in charter school and tech, and then the enrollment going down in the Tyngsborough Public Schools, yet our costs keep going up more than the 2.5%. So I think they're going to have to not just, I think it's sharpening their pencils, but also coming back with something that helps us understand it so that we can get into it at the same level that we're going through here. The only question, bless you,
Thank you.
that you can help out with in the meantime is last year, health insurance went up 17% versus a 6 to 8%. Let's find out what that dollar amount would be, 17% versus 8% in dollar amount, and then see what that would also be when you do the 25% that we're doing this year versus 8%.
You got it.
My guess is that's more than the $900,000 that we're talking about for our operating budget for school expenses. And, you look at it and say, well, new growth was there and we should have known this. If anybody could have told me that health insurance was going to go up in these numbers, and by the way, this is not unique to municipalities and Tyngsborough, it's happening across the board. We have a healthcare cost crisis. So we couldn't plan for it, but we do need to go through and do some scenario planning to figure out what's going to happen, assuming that it's not addressed. I mean, I think it would be foolish for us to think that this was somehow miraculously going to be addressed in the next year or two. I think this might be our new normal that we're going to need to address. And I think looking at what's there with the GIC, their numbers were 12% recently, but they were up higher than what we were doing before. So it's not like, oh, why would you wait? No, before we were doing okay.
Could you explain the 8% that you were mentioning?
So Colin had said what we would typically see in a year-over-year budget for health insurance increases would be 6 to 8%.
Typically,
per
okay.
year.
Understood.
I, in my conservative mind, I sit there and say, let's say it was 8%. What would be the difference between that 17% and the 8%, and then the 25% this year and that 8%? Let's see what those would be in rough numbers. I think the 1.3 million that you'd said, hey, by the way, that 25%, that's 1.3 million.
Yeah.
That means something to me. I can relate to that more than the 25% and all those things. So I think it's just a matter of visualizing the numbers in a way to add some additional context. So that I think would be helpful when we start talking about that. I think it's a matter of people looking at things in total, and I look forward to how you guys make out with a revamp of looking at it with this lens. Thank you.
Select Person Gilthus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't say I really have questions. I think I'm disheartened to hear about the rate increase for the health insurance based on our loss ratios. That is, there's nothing nice I can say about that. I mean, it is just so, it's such a shame because people need health insurance and we are caring for our people in our community, and they clearly have health needs that are being addressed, thank goodness, that they have the care that they need. And so the fact that we are penalized for that is insanity. So very frustrating to hear that. And to your point, Select Person Eldridge, thinking about the increased rate for the school department, which is over the 2.5 that we had been talking about this time last year. And if enrollment is dropping in the public schools and it's increasing in the other schools that we have obligations to, how is the school department justifying the continued increased cost if enrollment is down? And so I think having a conversation with the school board and just figuring out that piece of the budget, I think is going to be really important, because obviously we need to fund the schools, but I think understanding where that is coming from is going to be really important to us. And I think last year it was like 60 or 70% of their budget was staff, right? It was like salaries.
I
It's
can get
some
you that number. I don't
crazy
want to.
number.
I don't want to guess.
Yeah, that's about right.
I just remember it being
It's high,
like
yeah.
nuts. And we need to pay teachers, but also just figuring out, like, is it the right head count for the services that we're providing? And so, I mean, not so different from the conversation before with David. Like, I am appreciative of the work that you guys are doing, because this is hard and there's no easy answers. So thank you for doing the exercise about zeroing out the budget and explaining that to me when I asked about it. So that's it.
Select Person Coughlin.
I actually had a few of the line items circled, but I feel after hearing everything that it's probably best answered at a future time. Especially, we just talked a little bit about the Greater Lowell Tech. I just had some questions around that, but you kind of had helped me through that. So I don't really have any other questions that I think I can add to tonight's meeting, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a bunch of points. I think most of them have been brought up. My biggest one is, I think the one that Select Person Gilfus brought up just a minute ago. If we allow the schools to grow at 2.7% and our levy can only go up by 2.5%, it means that every year somewhere else in the budget we're cutting because the schools are sucking up just a little bit more of that. I don't think that's sustainable. I know earlier you said we're not in a structural deficit, but we have a unique combination. That's just playing words. I think we have a structural issue, because we've committed to $900,000 of our budget. That's a permanent problem that we have, right? We have a regional technical school district that is completely out of our control. There's a second problem. We allow the schools, at least up till now, to increase by 2.7%. And I don't think that, I think assuming that we can level service the budget and stay at 2% or less is near impossible, right? And then the last point I have is several years ago, when we had committed to this 900,000, we said that the new growth from Toll Brothers would equal that. And what I'm hearing tonight is it has not yet. And I don't know when that will happen, but until it happens, that is a more or less permanent problem that we're dealing with, is that shortfall from Toll Brothers, which was supposed to negate that 900,000, has not happened yet. And if it doesn't happen in '27, it's yet another strain on our budget.
And I do want to just, as it relates to the school 2.7, the only reason I mentioned that was simply because certainly there are no contracts being settled nowadays that increase less than 2.7%. And so I was really bringing that up just to say that the only way we could increase the budget above 2.5 is if you had that additional new growth.
Right.
But we dedicated all of that new growth and then some that didn't exist to that 900,000. So I don't want it to look like I was critical of the school going
that's fine.
2.7.
Understand.
It's just the math isn't mathing, as the kids say, because all of the new growth we wiped off the table, and then we said one part of the budget would go up 2.7.
Yep. Okay.
And if I could, let me just add something relative to the schools, because I don't want people to think that that's the answer, because there are other factors with the schools, right? There's special education.
Oh, yeah.
There are factors in there that the school has to navigate, and they've done very well in doing that, and I applaud them for many of the things that they have to juggle. I just think it's one of those things where we have to look at it collectively, and, just rubber stamping a 2.7 increase for them, we can't do it anymore. And so I think we just have to, that's where I think on the 26th, if we can just come together with everybody.
Yeah.
We're open to ideas and figuring out a way that we can make this work, because we know we can't spend more than we bring in. It's really quite simple. So I think it's one of those things where we'll let you do some of your work. In the meantime, I would like to add one question, because I added in the health insurance one. Let's figure out what the Toll Brothers, they're at 84%, I think, was, occupancy or permitted or completely permitted.
85 totally built.
Totally built. Those homes are bringing in X amount in tax revenue. I want to know
tell you
what
that right
that
now.
number is, because that's your new growth. Forget the licenses and permits, which that's an operational thing, but just on the levy, I'd be curious to see what that new growth is, because as much as we thought that it went a little bit slower, I know those homes went for more than what we thought they were going to go.
Sure.
So
Right.
I would be curious to see.
Yeah. I happen to have the spreadsheet open from when Lauren sent it to me. So in
course you
fiscal
do.
24, 25, and 26, the levy growth, so this is just the new growth, was 828,483. The value, though, the taxable value combined so far in 2024, 2025, and 2026 is 64.4 million.
64, but they didn't bring in 64. What I'm trying to figure out
just
is,
the value.
what did we get in tax revenue from
That's
the
the-
Toll Brothers?
It's the
Okay.
830.
That's, and I would just do
Right,
it
yeah,
annualized for the current year, right? You just sit there and say, in fiscal year '26, those 85 or 84, however many, 85 homes, what are they paying in taxes? Just combined, and I don't need the number today. I'm just
That's the
saying
828. That's the 828 number.
they're bringing in $828,000.
Correct. Just the ones that are built and occupied.
Right, so if you extrapolate from that, when they get to 100%, it'll be $1 million.
But I'm just saying, but even so, it's 828.
Right.
That's, so if we can sit there and say, oh, well, it fell short. Okay, 72 grand short, and it's a little bit delayed, fine. It's not like it's only bringing in $300,000 or $400,000. It's 828 right now. Forgetting the permits and
Right.
fees, which we know brought in.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
All right, we're not going to answer all the questions
Nope.
tonight. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for bringing it to everyone's attention and the right level of urgency. And we'll sit down with the school committee next time at a joint meeting, and we'll continue to hammer through this.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I appreciate it.
All right, number 10, the review and improve our correspondence policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Included in the packet is an updated version of your correspondence policy incorporating feedback that I've received individually from board members. I also attached, as you may remember, we put this online and asked members of the public to send us their feedback. Some of this, coincidentally enough, between your feedback and this has been incorporated. Like, for instance, the policy originally used the word letter, email. I replaced anything with correspondence, so the policy now has a very clear section. There was feedback, both from a member and from the public about, we had something in there about what happens if the clerk gets the information. We added some clarifying language that if my office receives it, we'll confirm receipt with the sender and forward it to the clerk. And if individual members receive, the expectation, of course, this is self-policing, is that on top of sending it to the clerk, they would say, hey, thank you for your email. I forwarded it to the clerk. Some of these were questions. Digital correspondences, again, is included by changing the word from letter or note to just correspondence. I think that covered it. And to confirm, and I confirmed this with the resident, but individual emails, texts, et cetera, sent to each of the select board members would not trigger a clerk response unless 3 of them reported receipts. That's correct. A lot of this dealt with clarifying that communication piece. Some of where it suggested new policies, I didn't assume that you would be interested, so I didn't add it in. But where there was language about clarifying and making it easier, I did kind of adopt it. And then you have some correspondence from people saying that they thought the policy was clear and good to go. This comment, if a correspondent warrants a response from the select board, it should be made officially rather than a select board member personally. This is covered by the open meeting law. So for instance, if select person Coughlin got an email saying that the board should vote to make Colin wear a clown uniform, select person Coughlin couldn't email me and tell me to wear, I mean, she could, and I probably would do it. But this is just clarifying that people will often send you their position on things, but the board can only act through a vote, which is covered by the open meeting law. And we will update, once we post the policy, there is a general select board email. It's selectboard@tyngsborough.gov. That's how some of you get correspondence from folks. And this suggestion is a good one that we added on the website. Right now, it's just links to your individual emails. So we will clarify that on the website as well. Aside from that, I do believe, but certainly correct me, I think all of the members' feedback has been incorporated. And certainly, I know Mr. Murphy sent some pretty lengthy commentary. If there's any parts of this that you want to adopt in a correspondence policy, let me know. But again, if people just suggested clarifications or typos, I assumed that that was okay and did it, but I didn't take new sections.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions?
One, I think it looks good. I think it's better than what we had. I am of the mindset always of let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. I think that we should adopt it, put it out there, try it out, and let's see how it goes. Unfortunately, I'm the clerk, and so I'll get to deal with some of the fun that's associated with that, but I think it's just one of those things that we don't really have anything. I think having something allows us to at least address some of those. There's nothing precluding us. This doesn't require town meeting approval. This doesn't require a lot of things to happen. So I'm of the mindset, let's put it out there, try it out, see how we do, and if there needs to be tweaks a year from now, tweak it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Select person Gilfus, comments?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that approach also. I think that in some ways we aren't going to know if this works until we start trying it out. I think that's been my stance all along, is this is more of a procedure than a policy, and some of that we just need to see how it feels and if it works, and if it turns out we don't get any emails to all three of us, 3 of us at a time, then we figure it out, So I think this works for now.
Good, thank you. Select person Coughlin.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with this, and let's just give it a try, and thank the citizens who did weigh in. I think this is really important because we do want to encourage, folks in the community to reach out to us. So I think this is a really great first step, second, third step, and we just kind of revisit it. Once we adopt it, who knows, it might be a new scenario that we never even thought of. So, but no, this is good.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree. I think I'm all in favor of adopting this, knowing that this is sort of a living, breathing document that can be changed as situations change, as circumstances change. Who knows what we don't know about that'll come up in the future. So yeah, I'm all set with it. So, do we have a motion?
Do you need?
We do.
Yes, I will need a motion to adopt as presented.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the Select Board correspondence procedure as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That carries 4-0-0. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you.
Okay, Select Board reports. I'm going to start with Mr. Eldridge first.
I've said enough today during the town manager's report. I wish everybody a happy new year. I really hope that 2026 is even better than 2025, and I hope that folks will have some patience on the roads. We're getting some snow, I think, right outside, so folks, when it's snowing, don't expect that the roads are going to be completely cleared as soon as that first flake hits. You're going to see some deficits and things like that. Sand, salt, and those folks cost money. So we're trying to balance safety with with costs that's in there, but just drive slow, keep out for your neighbors, and be patient, because we have more snow coming. Thank you.
Selectperson Gilfus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll admit, this is my first day back to work after vacation, and we came in real strong with the budget, so my brain is not quite working. Can't say I have much to share, but to your point about the roads, it's been really nice seeing on Facebook, I follow Mill City Weather, and they have recently been posting some nice photos driving through Tyngsborough of the roads being cleared, and so just props to, the DPW and the folks that are out there clearing and being out in the cold, which is certainly not something that I envy them for. So getting recognition on the internet for the good work we're doing.
Thank you. Selectperson Coughlin.
Yeah, right before Christmas, I had the opportunity to go to the Tyngsborough Housing Authority to drop off some gifts to a family, and the maintenance staff there helped me into the building, and they were just really polite and courteous. And I just want to give a shout out to Tom McCormick and Nick Toe, who really are there for the tenants, right? And there to kind of maintain the property, and they really care about it. And so it's a reflection on them. And I think sometimes too, maintenance staff, they sort of the backbone to make sure that these properties stay, viable. So I'm just giving a shout out to them, and yeah, Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you. And I will finish off with, yes, a Happy New Year to everyone. I'd love to finish off with a positive note, but I'm going to have a negative note instead. I've heard from a couple of sources that there's been some level of damage at the new middle school in the girls' bathrooms, that kids are defacing some of the furniture, writing on it with pens and whatnot. I just want to impress to parents of middle school students to explain about responsibility. This is our gem within the town. We've just started paying for it. We want to make sure that the kids treat it with respect. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us in the town, whether it's parents, children, teachers, the administration, we all need to impress upon the people that use that building to treat it with the respect that it's due. We want it to last for a good long time. We spent a lot of money on it. Let's take care of our property. So thank you. Have a great night. Okay.
When will we see each other again?
January 26th, 2026, and then February 9th, 2026. In the meantime, I would like to make a motion.
Please do.
I move that the board goes into executive session under exemption 2 to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, all non-union personnel, and under exemption 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. All collective bargaining units.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
In favor?
In favor.
I am in favor.
I am also in favor. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave?